Back in the day, I used to be very vocal about how Power Rangers would tease about different things, mainly about the relationships between Zoe and Nate. We saw that there was a moment that Zoe and Nate were about to kiss, and then it didn't happen. It was confirmed that Hasbro didn't like the idea, and it was dropped. Now, there have been other times where kissing has been taken out. One of them was in Ninja Steel with Kelvin and Haley on the kind of the ship, and obviously they kind of cut it for some strange, bizarre reason. This is weird because couples do actually kiss. Going back to Nate and Zoe, the idea was dropped and we actually didn't know if they got into a relationship, because to me, after that one episode, it just seemed like they just stopped with everything and went their normal ways. To me, it's a really interesting thing because there are other moments within Beast Morphers and stuff like that that just didn't really make sense. Like, you have the morphing grid that can bring people back to life and that can create new life. It's something that would be considered very differently than a basic thing that people do on a day-to-day basis. Anyway, one of my pet peeves within any source of media is the will they, won't they? But if there's no payoff and you're left with frustration and what the hell, why even bother putting it in there? I sometimes think that if you're going to make a storyline, run with it, run till the very end. But if you're not really going to pay off, then don't bother putting it in there and don't allude to it, because people will automatically ship characters together anyway. It's just something that if you're not going to follow through, then don't sign it off whatsoever. Anyway, Hasbro didn't like the idea of kissing, and at the time they just absolutely dropped it. And I actually can't remember if Nate and Zoe stayed together. Again, once you watch after that part, it just feels like they never had a relationship and it just went back to, oh hey, we're just friends, or this never happened for over like an entire season or something. Anyway, Cosmic Fury did one of the biggest things that no other Power Ranger show has done, or at least not many shows have done, and that is Harvey losing his arm. It's a pretty ballsy move, to be fair, and I'm glad that Simon and his team worked with people that have gone through it and were able to give the correct information and how it would all affect people. I generally think that is one of the most amazing things they've done, and they went above and beyond for it. What I'm like is, how can you show someone losing their arm, going through the entire whole kind of process, you know, the shock, the trauma, the kind of recovery process, but you can't show a quick kiss on TV? It's just something. If you're alluding to any sort of relationship and you're obviously wanting to pay it off, people have relationships, follow through with it. You have parents, you have partners, you have a lot of stuff, but it just generally feels like you can't show that one thing. And again, I just get really frustrated and irritated about it because it's a storyline that it's there. It needs to kind of follow through. I'm not asking for a makeout session. I'm not saying the Rangers should attack each other's faces for 5 minutes straight so you're like, oh yeah, they're actually together. No, it's if you're going to show an emotion with someone saying like, hey, I've saved you, or you've saved me, it's a natural thing to do. If you're not going to show that one action, why bother putting it in there and actually have a Ranger together in a relationship? Now, don't get me wrong, Hasbro has been really supportive with many different things, which I absolutely love. We had our first LGBTQ plus Ranger, we had a male couple in Once and Always, we've had LGBTQ plus characters in the comics. There's so much progression that I'm absolutely happy that the show is starting to progress and actually kind of do a lot of stuff. But let's look at the arm versus kissing. To me, I would have found losing any sort of body part really traumatic. This would leave more than a scar mentally than, say, a normal kiss. Now, I would imagine that if there were more episodes in Cosmic Fury, we might have explored what effects of losing an arm on Harvey would actually be. I kind of think having a conversation with his parents would have been good to see, because once you see the arm on the Ranger, you're going to go, oh, well, yeah, that's my son. He's a Power Ranger. He has the exact same arm. There's no way you could get around it. And I feel like that sort of conversation would have been really more in depth rather than what we saw very briefly, where basically Harvey's parents are like, oh, we got to head off and because we've escaped a prison. It would have been a very cool thing to see a proper sit down to kind of explore these sorts of possibilities, but I know obviously they were on a time kind of like crunch. Now, the main thing again, why can you show an arm coming off or vaporized, but you can't show a couple kissing each other? It's just, to me, really bizarre. Now, is this because of the regulations that you're not allowed to show it on a kids show or anything like that? But one of the things is, if you know about this and you know about these regulations or whatever, why bother start writing a relationship storyline, allude to certain things, and then not do the payoff? It's just so weird. It's just very, very weird. Now, again, as I mentioned before, I'm not asking for a full makeout session. No. I'm not asking that. I mean, a quick peck on the lips, like we had in Mighty Morphin with Tommy kissing Kimberly. But again, it's just something that you kind of like, why? Now, I don't know if Saban and all that didn't like that and they put it into the rulings of the show Bible and stuff like that. But I just generally think, like the whole thing with Kelvin and Haley, I think because you've established that they are a couple, it's something that they would do. One thing I wrote, and I'd probably say it in another video, but I imagine that Hasbro would just bust into people's houses and be like, hey, are you guys kissing? No? Good. Make sure it stays that way. And then they just run off straight into the kind of like the night or something. And then they go to the next house and like, hey, are you kissing? And like, no, who the fuck are you? And like, good, I'm glad. And then just bolt it out of the door. I think it would be really, really fucking funny just seeing that sort of stuff. So with wrapping up this video, I generally think people watching the show understand that if you're in a relationship, then this actually happens. It's an emotion, it's affection, and it actually happens, and you can express it more than anything. But moving forward, if you're going to be taking these sorts of shows, having a character fall in love, fancy, want to get with someone, don't write it if you're not going to show the basic emotion. Yeah, hold hands, that's great. You know, a hug, that's absolutely fine. But, you know, a kiss, a quick peck on the lips would be fine to show that to people. Again, Hasbro just busting in, hey, are you guys kissing? No. Right. Jesus, it just makes me laugh. It's in my head now. I think that if you're going to portray any sort of relationship and have the bare minimum, then show the bare minimum, not just, you know, oh, will they, won't they, because it's annoying as fuck. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know down below in the comments. And while you're down there, why not hit the like and subscribe to the channel? It helps it grow. And also, why not check out the Patreon or the channel memberships? Again, helps the channel grow. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. I want to say a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters, and I wanted to shout out Kimono Cat. Your help goes a long way to help support the channel, and if you want to help support the channel, the links to my Patreon and channel memberships are listed below in the description.
あらあら、チャンネルをサポートしてくれてありがとうございます。チャンネル登録、高評価お願いします。以下のリンクから商品を入手することができます。